Good evening and good evening and good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bolden Hammond. And listen, tonight, this is almost going to be finishing out our year. And I think the perfect guest to have is here with me tonight, Todd Ledbetter. Todd Ledbetter is going to come to you because we all have those things that we want to do for the new year. You know how we always talk about how successful we want to be, what goals we want to put down, those resolutions. Well, tonight, my guest will be coming to you actually with an acronym that I will talk about a little later. But how is our hard work that we do to make those resolutions, is it really overrated? But he has a book and he's going to share with us tonight on this book. So, welcome, Todd. How are you?
Dr. Michelle, I'm doing well, and thank you so much for having me here on your show.
But of course, before we get into the show, I want to tell because we both talk about things, bringing things into alignment, bringing things into manifestations. And I just want to share with the audience, and I've been sharing this all year with the audience about, when you connect with people, there is a reason why you connect with people. So, what does my heart well, and this is just proof of the pudding, when I tell people when I connect with people, there's a connection for a reason. So I want to share with the audience that maybe back in 2000, maybe about 3 years ago, I had put out, you got to make it plain. You're writing your vision, you make it plain. When you want to become an author, there are certain things that you want to do. So thanks to More Than Java, I'm going to give them their shout out because
Absolutely.
More Than Java, I did a workshop. I took a leap of faith. I did a workshop for people who want to be writers, and I brought in people who have been writers, but also to discuss the things that may happen in the industry. And Mr. Todd was one of those recipients who did, and now he has his book. So that's the proof of the pudding, how things have crept up. Where if you follow the alignment and you follow the path, there's always a connection for a reason. And I want to say thank you for entrusting me with giving you that information. But that's now why you're here today.
Yeah.
And it's been some changes. It's been changes all along throughout this journey. So, Todd, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write this book, and why you believe that the messages in the book about hard work is particularly relevant just for today.
Okay. Well, I am primarily a musician. I'm a saxophonist. I've been playing the saxophone since I was 10 years old. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I simultaneously started learning jazz because a lot of great jazz artists that came out of Pittsburgh. But I also, my mother had me in church every Sunday, so I started learning, the music of the church, starting with the hymns because I was in a church that actually still did hymns and stuff and gospel. And went through college and then moved to the DMV in the early 90s and was pretty active on the gospel scene and the jazz scene there. And in the meantime, I got married and had some kids and did all that thing. And, my life looked great from the outside. And I certainly loved my family and loved being married, but I was struggling, trying to just keep all of that going, keep all that together. And I think what I was really struggling with was trying to live in a paradigm that someone else tell people tell you. I think you and I we're part of that last generation that was given that ideology of go to school, get an education, get you a good job, and spend the best 40 years of your life working for the man, so that in your declining last 20 or so you can do some of what you want. And I tried to make that work, and it nearly killed me. At one point I was suffering from severe depression. I was overweight. I had sleep apnea, recurrent back problems. I was borderline diabetic, and like I said, I was in treatment for depression. Everything was falling apart, and then, of course, that created financial problems, and it was stress on my marriage. My family wound up being divided because my wife got an opportunity on the West Coast, and she went there, and my sons wound up going there with her, and the marriage ultimately ended. And I just said, I certainly not from a lack of effort. I did everything everyone said I was supposed to do. Why is this happening? I went to church every Sunday, said my prayers, did my exercises, ate my broccoli, was diligent at everything that they said I was supposed to do. Why is this happening? I got to figure this out. So I did. I started gradually being introduced to some ideas and concepts, and we even talked about some of them earlier. And ultimately, I started putting some of them into practice, and I started kind of being able to pull myself out of this slump. I know therapy and traditional mental health modalities work great for some people, but for whatever reason, it was not working for me. And I said, okay, if I'm going to get out of this hole, I'm going to have to find my own way out. And so the book that we're talking about and the concepts that I'm going to be sharing are kind of the fruit of that effort. And so now I'm committed to sharing what I've learned with others. Because whether or not you're dealing with something as severe as depression or not, we're in such an amazing moment in time, in human history. There's so much changing. A lot of people are scared about some of the things that are happening. A lot of the the things that worked and were people relied on for so long are falling away. I believe we're being called to a deeper level of understanding, a deeper level of consciousness, a deeper level of spirituality. And a lot of us are going to have to reevaluate some of the things that we were taught, some of the things that we believed, not to reject them, but to go deeper.
Yeah, you just said it. Go deep, dive deep into it because listen, audience, he just shared with you his personal experience and his insight. This is what we have been trying to do, and this is the focus of Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul because I believe that everything is in a tune for your mind, your body, and the soul. And if any one of those particles or pieces is messed up, it will trickle down into the rest of your body. As you said, you was having sleep apnea, you diabetes, all that stuff because of the pressures. That is what it is. We are so hard driven because that's what we were taught. How we are in that remnant, we were taught you get a good job, you married a successful person, and you had the dog, the picket fence, the house, and all of that. So we have been drilled in that, but now there's awakening coming on because some of this stuff doesn't work. So one of the things you just shared, a pivotal part of your story, and you gave a little bit of antidote. But I want to go back to some of the way when you talked about how you had to figure it out your own self, and some of these folks that you read some of their stuff. Again, it comes from reading. It's how you align and then how you capture things. But from what I read from the book, and we had talked about this earlier, and I know it's in alignment, and it's in alignment to what people might have their beliefs. Again, I'm not knocking no one's faith or whatever else, but when you said about Reverend Ike was like one of these people listening to these messages, and you notice that these messages of his from his son are out, that he's doing a lot of amazing work, and even from down to the wife talked about how she was Bible thumping, came from a family, but the principles, and that's what it is. It's about the principles. When you said about Reverend Ike, it took me back to my childhood where I would go get the mail from out the mailbox, Route 1, Box 606. I would have the letters with Reverend Ike on it, with his nice diamond ring. But my father always would quote, and if any of my family members are watching this, you will remember what your Uncle James used to say. You can't lose with the stuff I use. And that was one of Reverend Ike. I can remember going to Baltimore. I can remember going to Philly with my parents and my mom and them being in those arenas listening. And that's where I try to tell people that wherever you at in your time, it's reflecting back to now. Cause I'm like, I remember these some of these messages now. And then I've been seeing it more and more and more. But that was just fascinating to me in that part. So can you share a little bit about that whole experience? Because that's your personal experience and how you got your insight.
Yes. Well, I was like you probably were a kid growing up in the 70s when Reverend Ike was in his heyday. And I didn't remember a whole lot about him. I remember seeing him on TV on occasion, hearing him on the radio. And the only thing I remembered about Reverend Ike was Loose My Money. But as I was in this study of just trying to find some ideas, some ways to kind of improve the situation in my life, there were a number of teachers that I drew upon. Bob Proctor being one of them. I got very heavily into him. Neville Goddard. I started reading him a lot. But then I think on YouTube, I started seeing Reverend Ike because, a lot of his old sermons and videos from back in the day are on his YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. And like you said, he said his son Xavier has recently released a book about his life and work. And Bob Proctor actually wrote the foreword to that book. But anyway, I think at some point I started watching Reverend Ike and looking at it through different eyes now, older and just kind of in a different state of mind. I was like, oh, whoa. Ike talking about a whole lot more than lose my money. He's talking about the power of the mind. And then I learned that, he was very influenced by the work of people like Ernest Holmes. And incidentally, I have a cousin who is the spiritual director, they don't really call him pastor, spiritual director of a religious science church in Inglewood, California, with Ernest Holmes. That's religious science, not to be confused with Scientology. Totally different thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's educate because our people perish
Yeah.
because of lack of knowledge. There we
Right,
go.
right.
That
So, yeah.
see,
And,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
But the founder of that church was a man by the name of Dr. Daniel Morgan, and he was kind of doing some of the same things out there in California. And now one of my cousins is the pastor of that church. And when I went in that church, and I was attending it because I was in California for a little while, and they got pictures of the two of them together, Dr. Dan and Reverend Ike. So I'm seeing all these connections, and of course, that was also the church that Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith came out of. He actually started his ministry in that church. And of course, a lot of people are familiar with his work. So everything is kind of coming around. And from that origin of what we were taught coming up in the traditional church, whether I was Baptist and people might be Holiness, Pentecostal, AME, or whatever, but it all gets down to that same root of teaching. But now we're seeing all of these extensions, and you're seeing how far ahead of its time Reverend Ike was. Certainly in the black community, in the black church or spiritual community or whatever, he was way out in front in terms of what he was trying to tell people. And most people weren't ready for that. But now I see people re-embracing what he was teaching as they're rediscovering him online, and we're kind of catching up with where he was 50 years ago.
Yeah, I was like, it has been capturing my mind for over like the past, maybe so I will say like 6 months. I've been really digging into some of those messages, and when you talk about, and it is about the power of the mind, because again, that's also what you talk about, law of attraction. So those key things, we talking about. So your book, Hard Work is Overrated. So you're going to redefine the work, your life, and your success. As you said it, you were someone who's successful. You had it all lined up. So where were the moments when hard work didn't yield the expected results? And how do you recommend others to build on similar situations?
Well, and again, going back to my personal experience, certainly working as hard as anyone, trying to, I was working in traditional work settings and doing everything I could to be successful, but there was just always seemed to be something not working, dots not connecting, and just over and over again having the same experience. And then I started really thinking about, the history of particularly our people. We should really understand this idea that it takes more than just hard work to really be successful. Now, it depends on what your goals are in life. If all you want to do is pay your bills, yeah, you can work hard and pay your bills. You can get some overtime, you get a second job, third job, whatever. All you want in life is to pay your bills. Then, yeah, work hard. You can get it. Congratulations. But I believe we were all created on purpose and with a purpose. That we each showed up to life with a unique set of aptitudes, interests, abilities, talents, proclivities, mindset, personality. That is our little custom toolkit for the fulfillment of our purpose. And I find that when people aren't satisfied with their lives, it usually gets back down to them not living on purpose. And if you see, I have a little copy of the book here, and you see I have on the image of the cover of the book someone hammering a nail with a screwdriver, right? Hard work. Can you hammer a nail with a screwdriver? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you probably can. But guess what? You're going to work a whole lot harder than if you had a hammer, or better yet, a nail gun. And eventually, you're probably going to hurt your hand, and you're probably going to break the screwdriver. So when we operate on purpose, when we operate in the gifts and the talents and the abilities and just the natural essence of who we are, it makes life a whole lot easier. If you think of someone building a house, they up on a roof trying to nail down the roof. Think of one guy trying to do it with a screwdriver and another guy doing it with a nail gun. The guy with the screwdriver is going to be working really, really hard and not getting a whole lot done. Meanwhile, the guy with the nail gun is just going to be like pop, 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 pop. He's going to be hammering. He's going to be driving nails all day with a whole lot less effort. So that's really the gist of that concept of hard work is overrated. I think a lot of times we work hard because we're not connected to that power source. Like that nail gun is connected to a power source. If it's an electric nail gun, it's connected to an electrical outlet. If it's a pneumatic nail gun, it's connected with a hose to an air compressor. But when we align our work, that alignment, connecting with the power, then we go from the screwdriver to the nail gun, and we get a whole lot more done with a whole lot less effort, and everything in our life gets better.
You have said a driven mouthful. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a little, maybe like a 40-second break, but we're going to come back and we're going to, end by, you just talked about challenges and barriers, but then I'm going to look into, you said something before about the goals, but I want you to expand on it. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back. Welcome back to another episode of the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul. And I am here tonight joined with my guest, Mr. Todd Ledbetter. He's an author, he's a saxophone player, and he is a woke brother. So I would just say again, thank you, Todd, for coming in. So, before we took the break, you talked about, goal setting, right? Some people, they get upset when they hit the challenges and the barriers to the goals. So, how do you suggest for people to navigate setbacks or failures while pursuing the goals?
I think you have to take a look at the bigger picture. I think a lot of times we have failures because that's just like a course correction. You know, if you think about like feeling, your feeling nature, what is the purpose of your feelings? Your feelings are like the indicator lights on the dashboard of your car. When you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling upset, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling depressed or any kind of negative emotion, that's just an indication that you're operating, you're not playing in tune. If I want to play a note on my saxophone, I have to play at the frequency of the note or I'm going to be playing out of tune. If you want a certain goal or desire, you have to operate at the frequency of that desire, or else, you're going to feel some kind of negativity. And that means that you're not seeing it, and to put it kind of in a churchy kind of way, you're not seeing it the way God sees it. Because God wants the best for us. Divine source is ever for expansion, for expression. You have to believe like the universe is pulling for you. But when you're operating out of tune, if you want to hear R&B music, but you're tuned to the country channel, you're not going to get what you want. If you're tuned to that country station, if you're tuned to the country station's 107.9 and the R&B station is 96.3, you got to tune to 96.3 to hear what you want.
Yes.
So a lot of times when you have these failures, it's because, again, you're efforting, you're working, you're trying hard, but you're not operating in the frequency. You're not connected to that power source on that nail gun.
You're absolutely right. And there was something that you had put in perspective that I loved as well in your story. The GMA. Can you explain to the audience what the GMA is?
Sure. Okay, that stands for Goal Mind Alignment, and that is my framework for making this stuff work. We hear a lot these days about manifestation and mindset and mindfulness and law of attraction and all these kinds of things. And I created a really straightforward framework that I call goal mind alignment, really aligning to the frequency of your desire. I literally say tuning up to the frequency of your desires. And it's a 5-step framework. And the 5 steps are: number 1, decide. What do you want? You want to have some fun? Go out to somebody, people, and whether it's someone you know, or even people on the street if you feel so bold, and say, what do you want? And watch what they do. They're going to hem, haw, stammer, look around. What you mean? What I want? Like you ask them a trick question. And a lot of times we don't get what we want because we just haven't even identified in our own mind what it is that we actually want. So step 2 is think. Once you get a clear understanding, clear picture in your head of what you want, you need to think along the lines of what that thing is. Think along the lines of what you want. So many times we focus all of our energy, effort, and attention on the things we don't want. If we don't have enough money, if our loved ones aren't acting the way we want them to act or treating us the way we want to treat, if there's traffic on the highway and on the road and it's making you late, holding us up, we tend to focus all our effort on that thing we don't want, thinking that if I focus my effort on this, it's going to make it better. And that's like trying to put out a fire by throwing gasoline on it. So you need to think along the lines of what you actually want. Well, what would it be like if I had this new car? What would it be like if my relationship operated in harmony most of the time? What would it be like if I had this great fulfilling career? And then once you start thinking along those lines, you're going to start to feel along those lines. And remember, feeling is perception of vibration. Everything is vibration. Everything that exists vibrates at a frequency. And when you start feeling along the lines of having that thing that you want, being that thing that you want, doing that thing that you want, you're going to start to feel a certain kind of way, certain better. And you're tuning yourself up to the frequency of that desire. Then you act. And then once you start acting, because you're feeling along the lines of your desires, because you've started thinking along the lines of your desires, because you've actually identified what it is you actually want, then everything's going to change. Mm-hmm. And when you act, you're going to act more along the lines of having that nail gun hooked up to the power source rather than efforting with that screwdriver to hammer those nails. Then step 5 is allow. Now, that's the most powerful step, and that is the hardest step for people to wrap their heads around. What, allow? Do nothing? No, that doesn't mean do nothing. It's like when you plant a seed, you dig the hole, you plant the seed, you cover it over, you maybe put a little water on it, and you don't sit there and wait. Okay, it's been 30 seconds, where's the plant? You don't do that. You trust that what's been placed in the seed is going to do what it does, and you've created the right conditions that sooner or later, if you do whatever cultivation needs to be done, you might need to put a little more water on it, you might need to put it in a certain kind of soil and a certain amount of sunlight, but if you do all of that, eventually you're going to see that plant shooting up from beneath the surface of the ground. Same thing. Allowing is once you've done all these steps, you've decided what you want. You're thinking along the lines of what you want. Now you're starting to feel along the lines of what you want. Now you're acting in accordance with those feelings, and you're going to allow. You're going to trust the process. I say 2025 is going to be the year of, for me and for the people who hang out with me and follow me, it's going to be the year of allowing and unfolding. And we don't mean unfolding in the sense of watching the unfolding. We are actually going to be the unfolders. But it all starts with, doing these steps and getting tuned up to the frequency of your desires, and watch how everything in your life starts to change.
Brother, you just said, look, I'm just sitting here like, I've been talking this all year about frequencies. So people, and this is not by chance. I keep telling you guys, you audience, those who are watching, you may be catching the replay of this. What he is saying, the frequencies are tuning up. And like he said, the unfold. So, it's your action step. Take your action step. He already gave you some principles on the ask. And that was another thing. If you don't ask, that is one thing that Reverend Ike used to say too. Ask for what you want.
And even Jesus in the gospel said, you have not because you ask not.
And you know what? It's the ask. Ask, seek, and then you knock. Mm-hmm. If it means with the knock, just don't mean that it always have to come in. Sometimes you got to knock things out of the way. And it may be you that you have to knock out of the way. But that's a whole nother topic. But brother, I'm going to say thank you so much. And audience, go buy 10 of these books. Here is, give them out, because it'll be something, you've been working so hard for, and you're doing too much. You're being overrated with what you're working for, because it's probably not in your purpose to have. That's another thing. Ooh.
And you really like this book because it's not a long book, as you see it. It's not that, and it's written in the form of a story. It's a narrative. It's a conversation. It's a set of interactions between two people. And the feedback that I'm getting is it's a very easy read. It holds your attention. It's a page turner. You want to see what happens next. But in the process of reading the story, you're going to be learning these concepts. The gold mine alignment that I shared with you. Also, the 4 key questions that you have to ask as kind of the prelude to going into the gold mine alignment framework, and it's going to break it all out for you. And included in the book is a link to a free workbook that you can download. And, I suggest you print it out and you can do the exercise, and you're going to start to work on this stuff right in real time as you're reading through the text. And this is really going to help you start to put this into practice in your life.
Wow. So, Todd, let's look in the spring to have you come back,
Absolutely.
and I know there's more. So, look, audience, I want you to go grab this book. There's the link. And I am going to also give you this link because if you need some, let me tell them. Can I tell them about the frequency? This is the bad brother on the saxophone. I will tell you some of that music I've listened to mellow me out to relaxation in one of my mindfulness practice. So I will tell you to check him out. And if you're in Las Vegas, am I correct?
I'm in Las Vegas now, yes.
Yeah, he's in Las Vegas doing shows. So for all you who want to take a little, what stays in Vegas, goes on in Vegas, stays in Vegas,
What happens in
whatever.
Vegas stays in Vegas. Yes.
But go check him out. The brother is bad. And Todd, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. And before we end the show, just can you give out, since it's going into the new year, this is New Year's Eve. Since we're going into the New Year's, can you give the audience something like a piece to take away while they're making their resolutions, walking into this new year? Can you give them something for their environment? For work?
Sure. Well, as I kind of mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things happening in the world. There's a lot happening economically, politically, socially. We're just being bombarded with so much right now. But just focus on the things that you can control. And the first and foremost of those is how you're thinking and how you're feeling. Don't downplay your feeling nature. We have a tendency to do that in this culture. Oh, you all in your feelings. Oh, we downplay that. But again, that's like the warning light in your car. When you're feeling some kind of way, that's just an indicator that, hey, there's something I need to address or there's something I need to do differently. And like I said, the people who are following me and hanging out with me, this is going to be the year not of hustling and grinding. We've been there, we've done that. Now we're evolving forward to allowing and unfolding. And I think this book and the concepts that I have in there are a great way to get started. And we're going to be rolling out more things based on that in 2025. So I'm really excited.
Man, anywhere you can use this platform, Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul is always welcome. You are welcome here. And if anything that I can do on my behalf of my expertise in practicing mindfulness, stress management, any type of those things, clinically stuff, let me know. I'm here for you. I got you.
I appreciate you.
I got you. So audience, this is, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. 2025 is here. But I will also say, I always use it in the show with the quote. It is that I say, if you feel that you're not loved, know that you are loved here at the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul. See you in 2025 and have a blessed week. And you know what? Follow the GMA. Follow that GMA that he talked about tonight. It's not Good Morning America. It's not Good Morning America. It's the goal mind alignment. Until next year, talk to you later.